Welcome to What's Your Next Move? Aging on Your Own Terms. I'm Lisa Cini.
And I'm her daughter, Addie. And today we're talking about the positive impact of pets and how they create purpose for our senior loved ones.
All right, let's go. So today we're going to talk about pets.
Yeah, I've loved animals my whole life. I actually wanted to be a vet at a certain point, and then I realized that it was a lot of school, but I was definitely obsessed with Animal Planet and all kinds of stuff.
You were?
Yes, totally. But I think that the first moment where I really saw the connection between my grandparents and my great-grandma and pets and how important that relationship was with my guinea pig named Ruby.
Yeah, so you were probably, I don't know, about 7. And you even had a birthday party for your guinea pig.
I did.
Do you remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, and I made people wear hats and bring gifts.
Right. All the cousins and everybody. And so how'd you come up with the name? Was because her ruby eyes?
Yeah. Well, that was my cover, but actually I fell in love with Jacob Rubin on a cruise.
Oh, yeah. So your brother's best friend.
Yeah, I fell in love with him, and I named my guinea pig after him, which is the highest honor.
So Jacob Rubin, shout out to you.
Shout out to you.
Yeah. Bexley, Ohio. You're probably married now, but Addie, now you know.
Now you know. Now
had
you
a
know
big
the
crush
truth.
on you.
Yeah. But so, so I had a guinea pig named Ruby, and she was really amazing. And just like most of our pets, they ended up living at my grandparents.
She was really amazing. She was a guinea pig.
Yeah.
Right? So she was like, she didn't talk. It wasn't like a Disney movie.
Yeah, no, but she was super, super cool. She honestly acted like a dog. And
She did act like a dog. Like, I was surprised. She was like, I thought she was going to be like a fluffier rat. But really, she was more like a dog.
Yeah. And so my great grandma really liked her a lot and took care of her all the time. And Ruby would literally run around and follow her. And she would, go up and sit on the stair and just wait for her to get dressed. She would wait outside and she would cry and go,
She would, and she wanted some like fresh grass. And she would also, she was kind of our canary in the mine, because if she wouldn't eat a food, like those little carrots that are like pre-peeled in the package, she would not touch them. And then we found out there were some chemicals in that. If Ruby wouldn't eat it, we shouldn't be eating it.
Exactly. Yeah. But really, the most valuable thing that she did was that she gave my great grandma a lot of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And my great grandma loved her really well for a long time. And it kind of opened my eyes to really the power of pets and how they can transform your life and give you a lot of love and attention and purpose. But it's definitely not the first kind of instance that we've had with animals, and wasn't the last. We actually kind of started our own little farm in Bexley, and
which is in the city, by the way.
Yeah, totally in the city. And that was the premise actually for a lot of the story of Hive, which is all about multi-generational living. We were all living in one house. So tell us a little bit about the beehive and why that happened.
So my husband, to be clear, my husband and my mother collude a lot. And then they'll involve Addie. So my son and my dad and I are more even keeled on all this, I would have to say. They get big ideas. Like, they got a big idea and they bought a Hummer, things like that. I buy mansions and renovate them. They buy, bees. So my husband had watched Shark Tank, and they had this really cool beehive that had a pre-hive in it, or pre-honeycomb. And so it made it so all you had to do was like flip a little valve and the honey would pour out. You didn't have to scrape the comb. You didn't have to disrupt the bees' environment and hurt all their work and worry about getting stung. And he thought that would be fantastic. So he got the family involved and purchased this beehive. And then we had this huge window that was about the size of a door. And my grandmother, her great grandmother, would sit there and watch him getting the honey out, tending to the bees and taking care of everything. And I remember, he had this, it was ridiculous. It's it's a hat and
it's the
netting,
beekeeper outfit,
right,
just like it has been for a long time.
Forever. And my grandfather had bees. And so I'm sure that was reminiscent for her. But she just absolutely loved it. She'd have such a smile on her face, and she'd tap on the glass and, ask him to show her things. And It was almost like being in a zoo.
Yeah, so it actually ties back into our love method for design, which is light, optimize, visualize, and ease.
Mhm.
And it actually gave her those visual cues to tie back into her past.
Mhm.
And also, it's just relatable. I mean, she has known that kind of, we have this term now, farm to table, but that's all they had back then.
That's literally what you did.
Literally what you did was farm to table. Right.
Yeah.
There was no intermediary. So it really was something that sparked joy in her. It was reminiscent of her past and also of her, the love that she lost with, her husband and everything like that.
Who was the love of her life.
Right.
Love of her life. I mean, my grandmother never drove. She combed my grandfather's hair every day. Like, I'm like,
that's a lot.
What is that about? Like, truly loved him. And, and there were other benefits like, honey helps with your allergies and your immune system. It's great for the environment, ecology of our planet. And then also it just tastes good.
Yeah.
I mean, we had it on toast and we had it in our oatmeal.
And it's a great supplement instead of doing raw sugars and things like that.
Most definitely.
But also great grandma, really was the queen bee too.
She was a queen bee. And we found out because my husband took all these courses on it that bees are fascinating. So if you ever want to read about them, they are really fascinating. And our family worked very much like a beehive with the worker bees and the soldier bees, the protector bees, the queen bee, which was my grandmother. So it's a really interesting kind of environment for multi-generational of how you can work together. And the other thing is you need to be careful. We also found out randomly that my husband was allergic to bees.
Yeah, he had this whole vision and dream for bees and then comes out with a completely swollen hand and he's hiding it in dinner because he doesn't want
eating with his left hand. And I'm like, why are you eating with your left hand? He's like, no reason. And he's got a glove on. And I'm like, it's hot in here. Why do you have a glove on?
It's the middle of the summer.
Like, no reason. Then I find out it was swollen, like huge. And he had to, and that happened like twice, one time his whole face. And so after that, I'm like, you have to have an EpiPen. And so that wasn't easy to get him to carry that, but he succumbed. He knew otherwise we weren't going to, I said, I will get rid of the bees because I'm not going to lose you. So.
Yeah. So the bees were really kind of formative in our multi-generational household. I know that was like a really kind of key element, which is hilarious. But we also had another key element and we added to the little city farm that we had created. And my dad, I'm in Italy at the time in college, and my dad calls me and he's like, Addie, what do you think about chickens? And I'm like, I don't know. They taste good. Like, what do you want me?
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
And he's like, I'm thinking about getting chickens. And I'm like, Dad, like, we live in the city. Like, what are you talking about?
And so just to be clear, he wasn't talking to me about that. I'm sure he talked to my mom, but he was hitting up the ladies that he knew.
No, you have to collude. You have to get your whole string of people
behind you before you introduce the concept.
Exactly. Propose it because you have to have, allies, right?
Right.
And so then he's like talking to me and he's like, well, I'm going to get a rooster and I'm going to impregnate the chickens and that's how I'm going to get eggs.
That's how you do it.
And I was like, Dad, that's just not how it works.
No, because we were brought up to believe, first of all, we didn't have Animal Planet. Second of all, like there's always a rooster. And so we just thought he was like the top dog, the pimp, and he had all his ladies and he would go around and impregnate the chickens.
Yeah. No.
I mean, how else
That's
do you
not
get
how
eggs?
it works.
How do you get eggs?
They're
then?
bird periods is what they are. That's what eggs
I
are.
don't understand then why does he even matter?
Yeah. Well, he matters for like generations. But anyways,
okay, so we're moving on because it still doesn't make sense to me. Still doesn't.
Yeah, so he calls me and he tells me this and he's like, yeah, I'm going to get a rooster. And I'm like, Dad, if that's how you think chickens work, like you're not allowed to get them because you got to do some more research. Like you don't know what you're doing. So then a week later, he calls me and he's like, I bought a coop. And I'm like, oh, Lord. So we actually we get these little peeps, little just literally chicken nuggets. Just the cutest things ever.
Let's stop there. So first of all, there's some things that you have to think about when you get chickens. One, you get them at the right time
of year.
Yeah, they didn't get them at the right time of the year. So that meant that they said, hey, Lisa, we're going to get these chickens. And I'm like, okay, because I travel a lot. I don't care. You guys are going to take care of them, right? Whatever. We'll have fresh eggs. I like eggs, right? And then I come to find out that they're too little and weak to be outside. They have to live in our house for like months.
So my mom had just finished converting my brother's old bedroom into a guest bedroom, and then we immediately converted that room into a brooding room for the chicks.
Yeah. which was awful.
Awesome.
Which was awful. And so chickens kind of smell a little bit, and they are very cute for a very short period of time.
That's not true. They are very cute for a long time.
No, but then they turn into a pterodactyl, a little tiny pterodactyl.
Well, yes. And
but grandma her great grandmother loved them. I thought that this was going to like throw the whole family into like upheaval. And I apparently was the only person besides my son when he came home that had issues with this. So grandma would tell us a little bit about you and grandma.
Yeah. So I had some really special moments with my great grandma caring for the little chickens. They were probably about teenagers at the time, and I would go in there all the time and feed them. And so we would go in there together and we would feed them mealworms, and it was very reminiscent of how she grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And this was actually super comfortable for her. So it was funny of how foreign it was for me,
right,
and how for her, it was just bringing back her old life, which, you know, for Alzheimer's, a lot of short-term memory is the thing that goes out the window,
mm-hmm.
but long-term memory is the
mm-hmm.
thing that stays.
Yep.
And so not only did it just bring her a lot of joy,
mm-hmm.
And we laughed because the chickens are jumping all over me and all this kind of stuff, but it also brought back all these memories for her that she could share with me, which was really cool.
It was incredible. I have some pictures that are just fantastic of the little pterodactyls with Addie and grandma. And then when my son came home, we did have a little incident where he charged his phone by the pterodactyls, and then they creeped up on the thing and he was bent down and they were looking at him and he kind of froze. And
he hates birds. He's terrified of them.
And here he's like 19 or 20. I don't know how old, maybe 21. I don't know. But he was terrified. And so he's crouched down. He's like, grandma.
Yelling, grandma, grandma.
Like not yelling,
grandma.
like whispering, because he was
yelling.
So scared. And it took like 20 minutes and finally he was able to escape.
Which was really
so for
hilarious.
Him, we got to use that forever against him.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. And then the chickens went outside.
Yeah.
And some of the great things about that were, tell us about like grandma going out every day.
Yeah. So my grandma, not my great grandma, would go out every morning and she would feed the chickens. We also had bunnies as well.
Oh, terrible animals.
Yeah. The bunnies, Piglet and Eeyore, really didn't like each other, but they all lived together. Other than, Eeyore was a bully. And eventually they got in a really bad fight. So it didn't work out so well.
Well, I think there was actually a murder.
There was a murder.
There was
Piglet
a murder.
Murdered Eeyore.
Yeah, it was like a really bad fight. No, there was a murder.
Yeah. But so I wouldn't recommend putting two bunnies in there. But the chickens and the bunnies actually got along really well. But anyways, what it really created for my grandma was purpose,
mm-hmm.
one. Cause, you know, my family all of a sudden was empty nesters with both my brother and I off to college. And so my dad literally filled the nest, which was good. But also it created routine for my grandma as well. So you get out of that routine of walking down there, carrying the food, all this kind of stuff. You also get exercise. So that kind of leads us into.
But we also had really great eggs. I will say they do taste better. And there's something beautiful about that. And just to be clear, we didn't start off this way. So we were not multi-generational. Then all of a sudden we were multi-generational with 4 generations in one house. 1 dog. Then my brother, my nephew died and my brother got sick and we took his dog as well. 2 dogs. Okay. Kind of normal, right? Then we got bees. Then we got chickens. Then we got
bunnies,
right? Am I doing that right?
Yeah.
That's when we became Weirdo House, right?
Exactly.
We had so many points that you could have in the city and we were teetering.
We were teetering on the edge.
The edge.
Yeah.
I'm sure our neighbors were so happy with us.
Yeah. But But it was definitely really formative and beneficial for the multi-generational family. And also just as we could have moved on as kids, there was still this sense of purpose and still someone to care for. And also for my great grandma, all that great just visual cueing of reminding her of her past, like chickens are familiar to her. Bees are familiar to her. These are all things that brought up her old memories, which made her feel loved and connected again.
Yeah, I think purpose, routine, visual cueing, sometimes it's what you need to get up in the morning.
Yeah. And so then also later on we had, well, during this time period, we have Callie, my dog who has since passed. She passed at 18. Which
this year.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
very sad.
Still a little sensitive, but she, generated that really important sense of routine for my grandma and grandpa as they moved out of, as we got rid of the chickens and all this kind of stuff. So they kind of retained that exercise for them too. So they were walking Callie 3 times a day. But like I said, she recently passed away. And so can you talk to us a little bit about how that kind of shifted and changed?
When Callie passed?
Yeah.
Yeah. COVID hit hard, the pandemic hit hard, and my dad worked up until the pandemic. And so he's 83 or going to be 84, 85. I don't know.
I think he's older than
Age
that,
is just whatever, a number.
We'll see.
But he was old. He could have been retired a long time ago, but he worked every day up until the pandemic. And, and my mom is always taking care of us and taking care of the family and even worked when we were in school. And there was, unconditional love. Callie provided, was always happy to see them, always there, just pitter patter. And, they had this little routine that my dad would like pretend to hit her on the butt, and Callie would, rah, 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 and she'd say, "Get him, Callie," like they're the cute bantering that you do, the exercise, the positive touch and communication and companionship. And when that all goes away, there's a hole, there's some depression. And so my son had moved back and his dog was kind of used to being alone. But I said, Mom and Dad, I kind of need you. Can you help take care of Emma and maybe have her visit with you during the day if you're, not out trotting around to Costco or to Kohl's or somebody like that.
Like they are every other day.
Every other day, or going to the river or a doctor's appointment. And so that has really brought Grandma and Grandpa, more Grandma, out of kind of the depression of Callie being gone.
Yeah. So even if you're worried about your loved one, okay, like we can't get a pet, we can't get a chicken, we can't get, a guinea beehive, a guinea pig. We can't get this kind of thing for my mom or for my loved one because she has X, Y, and Z. Maybe she has mobility issues or something like that. Maybe she can care for a dog for a day.
Yeah.
And so you can retain that sense of, first of all, physical touch. That's so important. We just talked about that. You lose that a lot, especially when you're older. People aren't like loving on you as much just because you're not around people as much. And then also, if your husband or your wife dies
or your partner
your partner, and you just lose that companionship.
Right.
And so
somebody to talk to.
Yeah. And so you can still retain some level of connection, especially with an animal, and, drop. Now you do it in a specific way where she waits until they call her. So it's not a burden to them.
Yeah. I want to make sure that they don't feel like it's a given that I'm taking advantage of them.
Right.
But, I wait. And then I have a friend too that's, retired, and she'll babysit pets. And so it allows her extreme flexibility to travel, but then she gets her pet fix.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so what are some other ways that we can have pets in the home without having pets in the home?
Oh, well, there's some other ways, but before I get to that, I forgot that we have in Boom, Addie,
which is the most recent version of her book.
We have a whole chapter on pets.
Yeah.
And so like how to feed them, how to plan for end of life, how to what kind of vitamins, whether to vaccinate them. And Dr. Gary Richter is the America's most beloved veterinarian, and he wrote the chapter. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah, this is not me writing about pets and all that kind of stuff. And there's just such good information in here, because sometimes you're also worried about what if your pet survives you.
Mhm.
Like, how do you handle that? So there's a whole chapter in here, and it's on Audible and Kindle and in hardcover and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, on Amazon.
But it'll tell you about your pets. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
We were talking all about the bees. But now to my favorite pet that Addie, maybe not so favorite for her. So we had the Joy for All Hasbro cat for my grandmother, which she absolutely loved. And at first she knew that it was fake. And she'd say, "Oh, isn't this cute?" And then after a while, she just thought it was absolutely real, didn't she?
Yeah. Yeah. And we've also talked about the robotic cat before on here, but the robotic cat, first of all, this one is cool. So there's a couple of different versions. There's the Hasbro one, like you just said. There's this one, which I can't remember.
This is Lily. So I named this after this is on Best Living Tech, and this is specific to me and our company. And I named her after my grandma, Lily.
Yeah.
And so we can show you, I can kind of, it's got these eyes that are actually cameras and robotic and has artificial intelligence in it. And so it'll move to where it's looking. It'll blink.
It'll actually recognize where you are, and it can kind of follow you, and it'll respond to you because it has AI inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also will, it purrs and all different kinds of stuff. You can hear it chiming in the background, the peanut gallery.
And I can actually turn off. I can turn off. She just said, "Ow." I can turn off the sound if I want that, or turn her completely off and just have her around.
So that's a great option as well. And we, my mom puts these in Alzheimer's dementia care facilities all the time. People love them. It's great for children. It's a fantastic option, especially if you're on that kind of spectrum of Alzheimer's dementia. Then you can have a companion pet that genuinely responds to you, because that's also an important thing of like connecting with the animal. It genuinely responds to you, but you don't have to worry about the waste.
You don't have to worry about stepping in something accidentally.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about whether, it's freezing outside and I don't want to go down the steps and break my back. So I don't have to take it out. I don't have to buy pet food.
Right.
That's a consideration, right?
That's pretty cheap.
Yeah, that's pretty cheap. You have to buy batteries every once in a while.
Yeah.
But it really does respond. It takes less than 30 seconds for you to kind of, the studies show, lose the sense that this is fake and a toy. And because the head, it moves around and actually follows you. And then it'll actually, like a cat, ignore you.
Which is great.
Awesome.
That's great. Yeah.
Which is awesome.
And so is there any other options for if we want to have pets in our home, but we don't really have either the time or the ability to take care of something?
Yeah. So the other thing is like bird feeders on the windows. And, it's wonderful because you're engaging with nature. It's not like a TV where you turn it on and then you just have your show, or a book. You actually have to be cognizant. You have to watch. You have to go and buy the right bird feed, and you might need somebody's help to put it in. And I would recommend getting one that's squirrel proof, because they are tricky little suckers.
Houdinis.
They are Houdinis. They're tricky little suckers. They'll go upside down. They'll figure out how to, and you can have squirrel things as well as your birds, but being able to identify and then maybe getting a bird book to see. You can also have bird feeders that are like hummingbird feeders, different than other ones. And then you can also plant plants that are for butterflies.
Yeah.
So in the summertime, you can do those types of things. But anytime you can bring the nature in of animals, it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah. So we've learned today, that pets aren't just cute and fluffy. They give us so much more than that. And what exactly do they give us?
So I think unconditional love. Like, when you come home and you've had a hard day or you are sick, a dog or a cat quite often will know, and they'll sit by your side and they'll protect you. They also give you safety and security, that they know somebody's outside and you can turn on the floodlights, or you can, somebody's coming to the door before you can hear it because your hearing might start to go. So there's a lot of unconditional love, companionship, safety, purpose, and exercise.
Yeah, those are all great. And also they can just bring back memories. So they're strong visual cues. Honestly, sometimes it's the visual, sometimes it's the smell.
Yeah, that's exactly
With the
right.
chickens, I think it's a little bit of the smell.
Yeah.
And then also we just have a lot of different options for not having pets full time, right?
Yeah. And, even if your mom or dad can't take care of a pet full time, they can dog sit or pet sit.
Right.
You can have, the robotic cats, Addie's favorite thing. And there's also dogs and puppies and things like that.
Yeah.
Or a simple bird feeder or butterfly garden.
Yeah.
Are wonderful. And bees are great. You can actually put them in a viewing space and have someone else come and take care of them.
Yeah. So even, my dad's Alzheimer's dementia care facility has bees and chickens as well. So
and they have these too.
And they have those.
And
also.
they have those too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have and they have a live dog as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is one thing that they can do today to have a better tomorrow?
Well, I think, you can reminisce about kind of good times that you've had with your pets and then figure out how you can bring that into the life of your loved ones. We found out so many neat things by having pets. I found out that my other grandma had 700 chickens at one point, and I had no idea. I found out a funny story of my dad buying chickens that I'd never heard before. I found out my mom had a pet groundhog. So, it can bring things out that you never even thought were possible.
Time stops when we're alone. You got my love,